What are you looking at? Yo, guys, check out my cat. Look, hold on. He's just chilling there. It looks like a turkey. You know, like how a turkey looks? All right. Welcome back to another banger of a video. We are in a new act and we have officially moved on from learning how to play the game and the hard truths of the game. We have learned the actual rules of the game itself, okay? So I've already taught you how to play the game. The next thing we need to learn is how to attack in the game. Since you know how to play the game, you need to know how to properly attack so that you are not button mashing, okay? But there is something even more important we need to go over before we learn how to attack. And that is learn how to properly save our progress. So in this episode, we are going to be learning how to save our player progress. Because if you don't save your game, you didn't make progress. Trading is no different. Journaling, you've probably heard that before in the trading space. Journaling is just you creating a save file, and back testing is just you going into replay mode to get more practice. Just like in a game, it is the same way in trading. So if you do not journal after your battles, you are essentially closing your game down for the day without creating a save file. Why would you do that? No, like seriously. Why would you do that? Have you ever like, oh my God, yo, I'm getting PTSD. You ever worked so hard in a video game and then you realize you didn't save it, and then you close the game or you die in the game and you have to like restart all the way over because there was like no checkpoints or no save? Bro, I'm getting like Resident Evil fucking 2 flashbacks, and I'm getting like, there used to be like this Aladdin game on the Nintendo or on the GameCube, and like the game had no saves. Like if you died in this game, that was it, and you just had to restart all over. But it was a fun game. I used to play when I was a kid. If I could find any gameplay, I'll put it up on the screen. We are going to be discussing how to properly journal so we can create a save file. So before we even discuss journaling, we first have to discuss what journaling actually is, and not what people think it is. Because most YouTubers will tell you just to write your feelings, how you felt that day, or tell you to take a screenshot or track your profit and loss. And why those things are true and they're not incorrect, from the videos that I've personally watched, they never show you exactly how to journal. Does that make sense? So in this video, that's what we're going to be doing. Journaling itself, the act of journaling itself, is just you creating a battle log. You are creating a save file battle log. Backtesting is replay mode for you to get more practice to become a better warrior inside of this video game. XP in the game of trading is just pattern recognition. It is not money. Stop thinking money. People will tell you that money is sitting below highs and lows. It is not. It is simply XP. This game does not move unless XP is being taken from either heroes or villains. Money, any money that you earn or any money that the market has created, no, let's keep it simple. Any money that you earn or you see on your screen, it is simply just the score. XP is what makes you stronger, not money. Money is your score. XP is what makes you stronger. So seek out XP and stop seeking out money. Find where the XP is and stop trying to find where the money is, okay? Get that through your brain. Okay, so discussing our battle log. Can anybody tell me what a battle log is? Did you already forget? Your battle log is your book of save files. So we need to discuss how to create a battle log in the first place. In other words, we need to discuss what to record in the save file. We are going to log each battle log like this. It is going to be the campaign story that happened that day. What was the overall trend? The second thing we are going to log in the save file is what was the objective? In other words, what was the XP? Whose team was I on? Was I a hero that day, or was I a villain that day? Whose XP was I seeking? Did we use any checkpoint? Was any support or resistance used? Because if support or resistance was used, it was most likely backed by a bigger player that day. A bigger player, being a boss fight, was backing that move. If we are behind the movement of a boss fight in this game instead of being against him, that is a good thing, and we want to keep track of that. So in the future, when we see it again, we are able to take advantage of it. The next thing we want to keep track of in our save file is what weapon did we use. Keep in mind, we haven't learned how to attack yet, okay? But we have learned weapons that we can use to read the context within the narrative. Our weapons are fair value gap, inverse fair value gap, a break of structure, a volume profile, and market structure. Those are our weapons, and those are what we are going to be using. Our weapons that we want to log in our save file, keep in mind, we have not learned how to attack yet. Our weapons, but we have learned about our weapon. Our weapons we have learned about are rejection zones off of candles, off of screenshot, fair value gap, inverse fair value gap, break of structure, in volume profile. With these 5 weapons, we can easily execute a trade on the side of heroes or villains, okay? If you don't know the objective before the fight, you're just button mashing. So within this save file, all of the things I have right here, this is everything you want to be documenting in your save file. Once you have all of this at the end of your trade, you want to save it, and I'm going to show you how to save it. Okay, you don't need some fancy fucking trading journal software paying $30 a month. Bro, you don't need that BS, okay? I'm going to show you how to properly do this. So keep in mind, the things we're going to need to save within our save file to create a battle log in the first place are going to consist of these categories. The setup. It is going to be the things we need to document before the battle takes place. The fight. It is going to be the execution. Whose side were we on before we executed and participated in the battle? And then the out after the battle. It is going to be our wins, our losses, what happened in the context that went on that caused us to either win or to lose. And how we read that context is through market. So beginning with the first category, which is the setup before the battle, the first thing we need to understand is our campaign story. What is the overall trend of the story for the day? You cannot do anything unless you understand what that is. If one does not exist, you do not trade on that map. You need a overall trend. Document that. Remember, this is the setup. This is before the battle. These are all things that you can write down before you even begin your day. Okay, so find your campaign story, find your overall trend. The second thing you need is your objective, liquidity / aka XP. Based on the overall trend that you're looking at, whose team is it that you want to be on for the day? More than likely, you want to be on the person that is causing the overall trend, right? So who is your objective? Whose XP are you seeking out? For example, if the overall trend is going in favor of the villains, I want to be on the villain team. So I am looking to make my objective the XP from the heroes. I want to take XP from the heroes for that day. The third thing we're going to want to document, if it ever pops up throughout our trading day, is support and resistance. The reason we want to document support and resistance is because it shows us where a potential boss room fight had spawned in at. And that is important because whether we lost or won, if we were able to document where there was support and resistance, whether it goes in our favor or it goes against us, it shows us where a boss room fight appeared and pushed the narrative either in our favor or against us, causing a overall trend hijack and changing the overall narrative, or it helped push the narrative in its original direction. So we want to document any support and resistance, so if it ever appears in the future, again, we know how to take advantage of it. The last thing we want to document are the weapons that are going to be used that. Now, keep in mind, we haven't learned how to attack yet. We haven't learned how to put any damage up on the table. But what we have learned about are our weapons of choice. We've had them laid out in front of us. I've taught you about all of them. Those weapons of choice are going to be rejection zone wicks, aka supply and demand zone, fair value gap, inverse fair value gap, break of structure, and volume profile. Keep in mind, there are other weapons of choice. However, for simplicity reasons, and so we aren't getting cluttered with extra information, these are the only weapons we want to be using as far as you're on my channel and learning from me. These are the only things that you need and the only things that you're gonna these are the only things that you need and the only things that you're gonna be these are the only things that you need and the only things that you're gonna want to be looking at the start of the day. Okay, so that is the setup before the battle. Once again, here's the entire list of stuff you're gonna want to write down. If you don't know the objective before your fight, you're just button mashing. So if you don't have all of these things here, you don't know your objective. You don't know your object, right? And since you don't know your objective, you're just button mashing. And we've already discussed what button mashing does. It drains your stamina bar. We don't want to drain our stamina bar. What is our stamina bar? Does anybody remember what our stamina bar is? Right? That's our stamina bar. We don't want to drain that, okay? We don't want to overtrade. So the next category we're going to want to document in our save file, to even create a save file in the first place, is the fight itself. It is the execution. So the first thing we're going to need to document is our entry type. Did we enter aggressively or passive? What do I mean by that? That is something we have not learned yet, and we are going to learn in the next video. But understand, I need you to still write these things down, okay? Write this stuff down. I am popping it up here on the screen. For the next category, for the fight, the execution itself, you're going to need to document your entry type. Did you take a execution? Did you take a market order, or did you take a limit order? In other words, did you attack aggressively or did you attack passively? Okay, I need you to write that down. Write down entry type, market/limit order, and then put in parentheses, did I attack aggressively / did I attack passively? Okay, write that down. The next thing under this category that we're going to need to document is our risk size. Our risk size, simply in video game terms, is just the amount of damage we're willing to take if we attack. So if I'm willing to take 500 damage, so if the narrative is in favor of villains and I'm willing to join the villain team once they create a new spawn point, I'm willing to take 500 damage at this spawn point if the heroes are able to move above this spawn point. So I'm putting the amount of damage I'm willing to take on the table, okay? I'm not going to put up any more damage than I can afford to lose from my health bar, or any more damage that is going to scare me out of the fight before the fight even completes itself, okay? Let me give you an example. If I have a health bar worth 2,000 HP points, I'm not going to risk 1,000 of my HP point. That's stupid. I only have 2,000 to risk. However, I am comfortable risking 500 or 250 of my health points in battle in hopes that we move in favor of my villains and we take out some heroes. Because then if we take out some heroes, I am going to collect their XP and stack it on top of my XP. So now instead of 2,000 XP points, since it moved in my favor, I have 2,500 XP points, right? Does that make sense? If I risk 250 XP points and it moves in my favor, I now have 500 XP points because I risked 250 and I got 250 XP points back, okay? So one more time. Under the fight execution category, you need to document your entry type and your risk size. Your risk size is simply the amount of damage you're willing to take. The next thing you need to document is the time of day. The time of day simply is the server population. Put simply, you don't want to be playing a video game and taking on any extra health point damage during low periods in the video game. You want to be playing when everybody else is playing the video game, because then you are more likely to succeed because the game is moving more. Remember, the candles show a screenshot of how the battles went. So when we are getting bigger candles compared to smaller candles, those bigger candles were just periods in time where a lot more people were just playing the game at that period of time. Why would we play a game when there's barely anybody else playing on the servers? Right? This is a game where you can't afford to play alone. You need other players in this game to fight so you can take their XP. So we want to be playing the game when all of the other players are also playing the game. So the thing you need to document is the time of day. It is the server population. We are going to go over the different server population times and how you can take a trade during those server population. However, we're not discussing that right now. We are just discussing how to create a save file. I need you to write all of this down because it is going to be important later. The next thing you need to document under this fight category is the high time frame versus your low time frame alignment. Let me give you an example. You're going to start on the high time frame every single day because it holds the most significance. The reason it holds the most significance, simply put, is because it holds a higher amount of time of battle data, each candle on the higher time frame. So if we are on the 1 hour chart, the 1 hour candles hold 1 hour worth of battle data. Okay, that is important. So if we have a 1 hour rejection zone in favor of the villains going down, what I then want to do once that high time frame narrative moves into that rejection zone is I want to drop down to a lower time frame and wait for it to push off of that high time frame area. The reason we want to be on a lower time frame is because since we are on a hourly time frame, we don't want to trade for hours, right? We are on a hourly time frame and it is going to take hours for those candles to form. We don't want to do that. So instead we need to drop to a lower time frame like a 5 minute or a 1 minute chart, and we are looking for it to start rejecting out of that high time frame area so we can then take 1 minute and 5 minute trades and then be done for the day. It is as simple as that, okay? And once again, we're going to go over all of this, so if you're confused, that is fine. I simply just need you to write all of this stuff down and stop asking so many questions and stop feeling confused, okay? So that is it for the fight category. Same weapon, different server, different outcome, okay? You are always going to use the same weapons, even if you're on a different server, no matter what the outcome is. Hopefully that makes sense. It makes sense in my head. I don't know. Okay. The next category we're going to want to document is the outcome itself. This is after the battle. This is after you have completed your battle. Whether you lost or whether you won, it does not matter. You want to document what happened after the battle. What that is what you won or what you lost or what you broke even. In video game terms, if I was risking 250 of my health points to potentially win another 250 of my health points and I won, I want to document what it is I won. Now for losses in video game terms, if I was risking 250 of my health points, but instead of going in my favor, it went against me, right? I want to document the amount of health points that I lost during that fight. Break even in terms of video game logic. If I am risking 250 of my health points and it starts going in my favor, but as it comes back, I close the position because I'm no longer confident in it and I didn't lose 250 health points, but I also didn't gain any health points. I want to document that. Okay? You want to document all your wins, your losses, and your break evens during your battle. Your battle is when you decide to execute. The next thing you want to document under this category is, did the battle go how you expected? Don't overthink this question. Did the battle go how you expected? It is simply yes or no. That is all you need to write. The next thing we need to document under this category is, did price ... continue, pull back, or consolidate? So let's break this down. Did price ... continue? What does continue mean? Continue means, in our video game terminology, if the overall trend is villainous and I was looking to join the villains since they had control of the narrative and it continued to follow that narrative and I won, that is a continuation. So did price continue, yes or no. Okay, did price ... pull back? What that means in our video game terminology is if the overall trend was in favor of the villains and I was looking to take a position in favor of the villains, and either as it started to go down or before the villains even got a chance to do anything, instead it goes against me, that is a pullback. It pulled against you. Did it go against your position? That is all that is. Did price pull back? Yes or no? The last thing is, did price ... consolidate? We've already kind of discussed what consolidation is. We haven't deep dove into it though, because you don't need to. Don't confuse yourself. Remember, consolidation is just when price reaches the point of control, and instead of moving away from it, it just kind of bounces around it, and neither the villains or the heroes have control of the narrative, and it's just moving sideways. So did price consolidate during the period when you were trading? Well, you should always be writing no here, because you shouldn't be trading when price is consolidating anyways, right? The only time I guess you could be writing yes here is if you hopped on that day and price was consolidating and you're creating a save file and you didn't take a trade, right? You will put yes, price was consolidating there. You didn't take a trade, right? It's as simple as that. So, given that, these are all the categories on the screen that you want to document, and everything underneath those categories that you need to be documenting in order, literally in order. This is all in order. This is how you need to be documenting all of this in order to create a save file. And once again, it is important to create a save file because just like in a video game, why wouldn't you create a save file? You cannot get better or you cannot advance in the game if you're not creating save files. It is the same thing with trading. In other words, we are journaling and we are properly journaling. This is how you properly journal. I just showed you how to journal. That is how you journal, okay? Now, where do I put all of that stuff? Bro, did I not just tell you the whole time to be writing down everything I was popping up here on the screen? That is where you're going to put your save data. In that journal you're writing in, you're going to write down all of those things that we just had up on the screen, and you're going to answer them on individual pages. So if you have your book open that day, right? So this is your page. You're going to write down all three of those categories and then all of the questions underneath those categories. There is a before, a during, and an after. And you're going to answer them as you go on with your trading day. After you are done and you have all of those questions answered, that one page is your save file. The next day, you are going to flip to the next page and do the same thing. Those are your save files. Document it in a journal. Well, I don't like writing. Dude, it is better to write things down than to type them. It is 10 times better, because then as you're writing, you're actually thinking and having to process what it is you're actually writing down. You're going to learn a lot more. Trust me, get a pen, get a notebook, and do what it is I just told you to do. I promise you, you're going to help yourself, okay? So the next thing I want to do is give you a visual example of what this would look like so that you can do it yourself. So now we are going to go to our charts. Okay, so now we are officially going to move to a real chart example, and I'm going to show you exactly what your journaling process should kind of look like given these categories: the setup, the fight, and the outcome. So beginning with the setup, when I log on for the day, before I begin anything, I need the campaign story. What is the overall trend? Visually looking at this, I can see from here to here, we are overall going up. Okay. Well, what about this? What about this? Stop looking at that. Look at what is currently going on. We are currently going up. Okay. Right. So what you will write down in your notebook under the setup category for campaign story, you will write trend equals overall heroic. A heroic trend is a uptrend. Okay. Or you can write campaign story equals overall uptrend. It's completely up to you. Since we know we are in a overall uptrend, right? The next thing we need to find is our objective. Whose liquidity, if we want to participate with the heroes, since this is an overall hero uptrend, whose liquidity is it that we're looking to seek out? Villains, right? We're looking to seek out villain XP, okay? So knowing that, I will write next under the setup category, under objective, I will write objective equals villain XP seeking, because I am seeking villain XP, okay? The next thing we need to find is our checkpoint. Are any checkpoints? Is there any support and resistance? Remember what support and resistance shows? It just shows you where potential big time boss battles are looking to get into, either switch the narrative or continue helping a specific group of players drive the narrative in one direction. Well, looking at this, where do we see price rejecting multiple times? Here, right? We get multiple rejections. What that means is that villains aren't able, they're having a hard time bringing the narrative below this level here, okay? So what that means is that this is a potential area where there is a big time boss that is helping drive this narrative. And we know that because, I mean, look at this insane movement, first of all. But this is a potential area right here. Let me make that a different color. Okay, never mind. This is a potential area where there is a big time boss battle that is stopping villains from hijacking the narrative, and instead he is helping the heroes keep the narrative in the upwards position. Okay, so what we will write for are there any checkpoints, aka support and resistance? Is there any support and resistance? We will write yes. Who has the support and resistance right now? Do you see any selling resistance currently? Do you see any selling resistance? Well, there was some resistance here, but it doesn't matter anymore because we've already moved past it. So there is no resistance for the heroes. Is there any resistance is there any support for the villains? Are the villains being stopped from moving down, right? Because villains don't want to be supported. They don't want support. They want everything to fall, right? Just like heroes don't want any resistance. They want as least resistance as possible to save as many people as possible, right? So is there any resistance for villains currently? Yes. You'll write resistance. My bad. You'll write support for villains. And then you'll write no, in this example, you'll write no resistance for heroes, okay? And then it is also important to note, I like to put possible hero boss battle helping narrative. Possible hero boss battle helping narrative is what I'll write down, okay? So we've wrote down what our campaign is, what our objectives are, and what our checkpoint is. The next thing we need to figure out are our weapons. So before we figure out what weapons we're going to be using, we need to first write down what our weapons are. The first weapon we have are rejection zones. They are simply the wicks on our screenshots, aka on our candles. Our next weapon of choice are fair value gaps, inverse fair value gaps, break of structure, and volume profile. Those are all of our weapons, okay? So let's see if we can find any fair value gaps looking at this current price leg. Zooming in here, do I currently see any fair value gaps? Well, yes, I see one right here that the heroes could potentially come back to. It doesn't mean, keep in mind, it doesn't mean they will come back to this. They could potentially come back to this. I also see one here, right? I also see one here that was currently formed, right? Because we have 1, 2, 3, and on the second candle there is a gap in between, right? So do we have any fair value gaps? I'll write a checkbox and I'll put a check inside of it. Do we have any inverse fair value gaps? Do I see any inverse fair value gaps? I do see some inverse fair value gaps, like there's one right here. However, this is really far down, so I'm not that interested in it anymore. Currently, I don't see any inverse fair value gaps that I want to use, so I will leave the checkbox blank on the inverse fair value gap. Do I see any break of structures? Well, yes, I do. Right here. This group of heroes were able to move past this villain spawn point and completely obliterate them. Remember, all the break of structure tells us is that we are indeed moving in the direction of the given overall narrative. The overall narrative is up, right? And we just broke past a spawn point of villains. So we will write, is there a break of structure? Yes. We want to put a check mark in that box. The next thing we need to look at is our volume profile, okay? How am I going to measure that? I'm going to measure it from the bottom of this leg all the way to the top. I'm then going to mark up my extreme zone, both of my extreme zones, and you can mark up the volume, point of control as well, but I don't really need it because I can see the line, right? And in fact, this gives us even more context because we can see that the heroes and villains were fighting for control here, and it was ultimately the heroes that ended up winning this fight for control, which is why we had such an explosive move going in one direction. And right, and that explosive move also matches the overall up narrative as well. So that is context that is important. However, we're not gonna overcomplicate this, okay? So what do we see on the volume profile? We currently see that we are tapped into a extreme area of the volume profile, which can indicate that this is where a potential big time player can step in and potentially hijack the narrative, right? But none of that matters until we see that though, okay? So for right now, your brain should still be, I want to look to take a position with the heroes because they're controlling the overall narrative. Not only are they controlling the overall narrative, but they also win the point of control fight. Okay, so now that we have our volume profile marked up, it has given us some context. The context is that the heroes have won the point of control fight, and we have now tapped into an extreme level of resistance. So we can expect a possible hijack at this level. However, until that happens, I don't care. I'm still looking to take a position in favor of the heroes. So knowing that now, I'm going to begin the next category. So for volume profile, you will put a check mark in it because the volume profile, we just used it and it has given us the context we need to take a position, okay? The next thing we will do is go over the next category. It is the fight. Entry type, risk size, time of day, and high time frame versus low time frame alignment. So now that I have my high time frame areas of interest, my fair value gaps, the next thing I'll begin to look for, now that I have everything checked off that I'm using, I want to begin to look for my rejection zones. So the rejection zones that I can clearly see with my eyes is there is a rejection zone here. There's a current rejection zone right here. How do I know this is a rejection zone? Well, first of all, experience, but this candle, let's move this out the way. This candle, when it opened up, the villains were able to bring it all the way down here. And despite all that effort, they got pushed all the way back up. And by the time this candle closed, the next candle started to open up and we can see how that candle closed, right? But that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is despite the efforts of the villains here, they weren't able to drag the price down. So that is a rejection zone that I'm interested in. I also see some other rejection zones here, for example, by the point of control, but I'm not interested in this one because I'm not interested in trading anywhere near the point of control, okay? So now what I'll wait for is for the low time frame and the time frame I'm currently looking at to draw back into one of these high time frame areas. So for example, we are currently in a high time frame area, so I want to wait for a candle to move outside of that high time frame area. Boom, we get one there. So what I can do here is I can drop down to a lower time frame, and you can clearly see, right, there is a overall move going up, and I can begin to look for my position in favor of the heroes using the same concepts, okay? For example, there is a group of heroes who have set up spawn here, right? And my XP target is going to be here. I want to then wait for our group of heroes to tap back into that. So since I have my low time frame area of interest now, what I'll then want to wait for is for the villains to try to come back to that area, and I want to trade in favor of the heroes. So I want price to move away from that. So we'll wait for the villains to try to come back to that area. Okay, that was kind of crazy. I'll be honest, that candle is a bit worrying if I'm being completely honest, but it doesn't matter. As long as this zone holds up, I'm interested in trading off of this zone. Okay, so let's look at our list. We are on the fight category. So we have already answered all the questions for the setup. Now we are on the fight category. What is our entry type? Are we going to enter aggressively by clicking the buy or the sell button, or did I have a passive order sitting here waiting to tap me in? I'm going to enter, in this example, I'm going to enter with a aggressive order. So for entry type, I'm going to put market order / aggressive is what I'm going to write down is how I entered. Okay. For the next question is risk size. What am I willing to risk? How much of my HP am I willing to lose if this continues to move against me? Well, in this example, I'm still interested in trading with the heroes. However, seeing this huge move down is a bit worrying. Okay. Not gonna lie. However, the zone is still holding up, so I'm still interested in it. I am going to decrease my health points, and I'm only going to risk how many health points I'm willing to lose. So in this example, I'm only going to risk 200 of my health points because I am okay with losing 200 of my health points, and I'm going to target a 1 to 2. What that means is I'm risking 200 health points to potentially make 400 health points, right? Because 2 times 2 is 4. I'm risking 200 for 200, a 1 to 2. You're putting $100 in to get $200 out. $1 in, $2 out. That's all that means. Okay. So remember, my entry type was a aggressive buy. So I'm going to click this button and I'm going to position myself below my zone. I now have what I'm willing to risk on the table, and I now have what I'm willing to gain on the table. Okay, this is a really impressive entry, so just ignore that number, okay? In a 1 to 2, so I now have what I'm willing to risk of my health points on my table. I am positioned below the zone I'm interested in this getting rejected at and going up, okay? So you have to understand, I am willing to lose 240 health if this continues to move down instead of rejecting and going up. Do you understand that? Only risk what you are willing to lose of your health. So for the risk size question, I'm going to write 250 HP risk. And then I'm going to write right under that what I'm willing to gain. So in this example, it is a 1 to 2. Granted, this is a really good entry on a low time frame. I'm on a lower time frame, and this is a really good entry. Okay. But what I would usually write here is I'm risking, so on the risk question, I'm risking 250 HP. And then I'm going to write right under that, I'm going to write gain equals 400, and then what my risk ratio was. So in this example, it is a 1 to 2 RR is what I'm going to write. Okay. The next question on this list is time of day. The server population. It is important to know the time of day you are trading at and what server you are currently playing in. In this example, this is the New York server. So I'm going to write New York server, and then I'm going to write the time. So the time here is currently 12:03 p.m. Now, we haven't gone over the server types. There are 3 main server types, but we haven't gone over those yet. It doesn't matter. Still follow along with me, okay? The next question here on our list is high time frame versus low time frame alignment. What that simply means is where I drew my zone up, where I drew my rejection zone up, are we getting alignment, okay? So for example, this is a fair value gap that is supposed to move price away. When I come down to my entry time frame, Did it move price away from that fair value gap? Well, you can see here, yes, it did. We entered into that fair value gap on the lower time frame, and then we proceeded to move out of that fair value gap. That is high time frame versus low time frame alignment. Does that make sense? We are in alignment. I had a high time frame fair value gap that is supposed to bounce price away. I then go down to a lower time frame, and I'm looking for the fight to enter that high time frame area and then move the fight the other way. Did it do that? Yes. In this example, it did. So for the high time frame versus low time frame alignment question, we write yes. There is alignment. That is all I will write. Okay. So now we have our questions for the setup answered, and then we have our questions for the execution answered. Keep in mind, the execution answers for your save file, these are going to be questions that you answer before you even think about risking any health points. You need to have the setup questions answered, and you need to have the execution questions answered before you do anything. Okay? In real time, you might be seeing like this candle move up and down like this, and you're scared of it leaving you. Don't do anything until you have the setup questions answered and the execution questions answered. If both of those are answered, then you can look to risk your health points, okay? So the next group of questions that need to be answered are the outcome. It is the outcome questions. What did we win, lose, or break even? Did the battle go how you expected, or did price? Well, in order to answer those questions, I need to first let this play out. So what I want to see happen here, since we have now came back into this fair value gap and into this 1 minute rejection zone, is I want to see price trade back up, right? And I mainly want to target this group of villains here. But how I trade, I only look to target a specific number. So I'm looking to target a 1 to 2 RR. Okay, given the context. So I'm going to let this play now. Let's get a candle. Boom. You can see here that, let me delete this. You can see here that we came back into this 1 minute rejection zone, right? And we proceeded to move out of it, and we hit my target, which was here. You can see here, I risked $240 and I made $800, AKA that is a 1 to 2 RR. This is where we would apply some risk management, and I can either decide to leave the trade, or I can take half of it out and then leave the rest running up to take out these group of villains. We're not talking about that right now, though. If that's something you want to learn and you're confused about that, I have links down in the description to book a one-on-one call with me, or you can look to join my Discord and come in and ask me those questions inside of my Discord, okay? So look, now we can answer the outcome questions. So for the first question, it is win. What did we win? Did we win? We will write yes. What did we win? I will write 240 HP risk, and then I will write what I won, what I closed with. So I will write 840 HP gain. Okay? That is what I will write since I won. Now, assume I lost here and this continued to go down and went against me, and it took my 240 HP. What I will write for loss is, did we lose? I will put yes, right? And then I will put 240 HP risk. And then if I lost here, I was only risking 240. I will put 240 HP loss. So that is how you keep track of what it is you're risking and what it is you're gaining, okay? This data is important for you over time. So if I broke even, what does that mean? Breaking even means if I'm risking $240, but instead of putting my risk here, as this moves up, I drag my risk to where I entered. You see how it says $0 now? That means I'm risking $0. So I'm still gaining 800. Let me move this down so you can see. I'm still gaining $840. However, Since this has moved up now, I moved my risk to break even, which means if this comes back down and hits where I'm risking, I will lose no money. That is all that means. So in this example where I won, did I break even? I will simply write no. If you did break even because you moved your risk up here to yes, you will just write yes, right? I mean, that's kind of self-explanatory. So the next question that we have to answer for the outcome, now that we have answered if we've won, lost, or broke even, and what it is we won and what it is we lost, the next question is, did the battle go how you expected? So this is where you will kind of write your thoughts down underneath this question, okay? So I will write the question out. I will write, well, exactly what it says. Did the battle go how I expected? I will then write a bullet point underneath that question, and I will give my thoughts on how the trade went. For this trade example, I will put yes. During this trade, I got extremely nervous because at 12:03, the villains gave a massive push down to my rejection zone. However, I still took entry by decreasing my risk from what I would usually risk, and I put my risk below my zone. In the end, the rejection zone ended up holding out and continuing in the direction of the overall hero narrative. Boom. You just write your thoughts. You write your thoughts what happened during the trade, okay? That is all you're writing there for that question. The next question is, did price continue, fell, pull back, or consolidate? Okay, well, what is it we seen? Did price continue in our favor? Well, it went up, didn't it? Did it take us out? No, it continued. So we will write yes. Yes, price continued. And the third question is, did price consolidate? I will simply write in my journal, no, price did not consolidate. We're not at the point of control, so price did not consolidate, okay? Simple as that. Your journal, one second. So your journal page should now look something like this. I don't know if you'll be able to see my journal. You can't. So on this one page of my journal, I just wrote down everything, and it looks like this. This is what your journal should look like. Your piece of paper should look like whatever image I have right here. This is how you journal. I've never seen anybody show this personally. They overcomplicate the shit out of it, okay? This is how you journal, and this is how you document your trades, whether you lose or you win. Now, in that example, how I set everything up, I obviously won. But if I lost, I document the loss and everything that happened, and then I close the game system. Don't take another position. Close the game. You did not win today. Stop over trading. Stop wasting your stamina bar and stop spamming buttons. You're wasting your stamina and you are draining your XP. The point of this game is to keep your HP bar alive so that we can trade, so that we can continue to play the game moving forward. Okay? So if you lose, document it and then close the game. If you win, document it and then close the game. It is that simple, guys. I just showed you exactly how you're supposed to journal with context, okay? Now, there are a few other things we need to go over. For example, the session periods, okay? But none of that matters. You can still learn how to journal properly. That is what we're doing here. You are just learning how to journal properly. You now know how to journal, okay? So I have given you the exact questions you need to write down, how your journal page should look like after you are done journaling, and you will do that every single day, win or loss, okay? And now what we need to discuss is this. The reason we are learning how to create a save file and journal properly, so journaling is just creating a save file, okay, in video game terms, is to keep track if we're gaining XP or losing XP, okay? That is it. We are simply keeping track of our save files because we want to see after a X amount of time if we have gained XP or if we lost XP. So imagine you had an XP bar. The only way you can see if that XP bar has moved up above your own personal character is if you have been creating save files, because those save files will then tell you if you have been gaining XP. Well, how do you know if you've been gaining XP? If you've been winning. If you have more wins in your save files than you have losses, then your XP bar has been going up. I just taught you how to properly journal and how to gauge if you're gaining experience in trading. So it doesn't get any easier than that. I don't think it gets any easier than that. XP in this game is gained when you follow the rules, when you recognize the pattern, and if you wait correctly. That is the most important part, is if you have the patience. Having patience is waiting for the battle to come back to your rejection zone or wherever it is you're trying to take your position, and waiting for it to give you that signal that it is going to move away from your rejection zone, for example. Okay? It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of patience in trusting the process. None of this works if you don't have patience, okay? You have to understand that if you are just button mashing and winning without a plan, this gives you no XP above your character, okay? One more time. If you are just button mashing and just taking random trades and over trading, you are just winning. So if you're winning by button mashing, you are just winning without a plan, without rules, so you are gaining no XP. You aren't creating save data files, so you can't see your XP bar. You can't see if you're leveling up or not, because you're just spamming buttons and you're getting lucky. You don't know if you're getting lucky or not because you're not keeping track of the data, okay? So you need to start creating save files. I just taught you exactly how to create a save file. Now, if you want to see exactly how this is done in a live market with a live trade, listen to me. There are links. Oh, my voice just cracked. There are links in the description to a Discord server and to a personal one-on-one with me where I will hold your hand through all of this. Click on the links and stop overcomplicating everything, okay? So one more time for my people in the back. Winning without a plan gives you no experience. Losing with a plan levels you up. If you are button mashing in the game of trading, aka over trading, and you are getting lucky and winning, you aren't able to see your experience bar above your character because you are not keeping track of your save data files. You are not creating a save file. The save files tell you how much you've won and how much you've lost, right? So then that gives you your experience bar. So winning without a plan gives you no experience. Losing with a plan still levels you up. Because if you lose and you track it and you create a save file, you can see how many times you are losing, which tells you how much XP you've lost or gained. On top of that, you can see where it is you're losing and use that as lessons, which is experience points, which is your XP bar moving up because you are gaining experience, right? That's why it's called XP. So you need to start journaling. And I just showed you exactly how to journal the simple way. Once again, if you want to see this in a live environment and that still isn't enough for you, click the links in the description to either schedule a one-on-one with me or come join my Discord and we can go over all of this stuff together, okay? I'm looking to build a community of people who want to help each other. And I know I keep saying that, and I know it's probably getting annoying, but I cannot stretch that shiz enough, okay? Now, we need to discuss what it is you should be backtesting. What is backtesting again? Backtesting is simply going into replay mode in a video game, and you are just going back and practicing. That is all it is. You are just going into practice mode, okay? So, you need to understand something about backtesting or going into practice mode. Do not practice everything. Do not practice everything in backtesting mode. The only thing you should be practicing is one setup, one weapon, one market, one session time. Hear me again. When you go into backtesting mode, do not backtest everything, okay? You just want to be backtesting one setup over and over again. Are you taking, when you're backtesting, I'm only trying to take buys or sells out of extreme volume profile, resistance, or support. That's what I mean. Or I'm only trying to take buys or sells out of villain fair value gaps or hero fair value gaps. One setup, one weapon, one market. What do I mean by one market? One map. Remember, the markets are just maps in video gaming terms. So if you decide to trade gold or Apple or whatever it is, you decide you want to trade, that is your market. That is the map you are playing on. Only practice that one map that day, okay? In one session time. What do I mean by that? We haven't gone over sessions, but there are 3 sessions. When you go into backtesting mode, you only choose session 1, session 2, or session 3 to backtest. Say I choose session 3, okay? I'm only going to look for my one setup, my one weapon, inside of my one market within that session time. Once I have completed that, I'm going to then go back to another period in time. In that one session time, out of the 3 session times, I'm only going to look for my one setup, my one weapon, on my one market inside of that one session time. Do not backtest everything, okay? If you backtest everything, you will learn nothing. If you practice everything, you will learn nothing because it will all just feel like a random mess. If you want to get true practice in, you want to forward test, which is just being in a live market, just marking the things up that you think are going to happen, and then just watching. You're not pressing buy, you're not pressing sell, you are simply just watching. And that is actually something we are going to do as a community in my Discord group. So if that's something you want practice with, join the Discord. So the point of backtesting, aka practicing, it is the same concept as a video game. Every time you practice, or every time you trade in general, I guess, but every time you practice, you are building a skill tree, okay? You are building map awareness. Say every day you just trade gold. You are building awareness of how that map moves when certain things happen, when certain narratives change, what it means. Do they follow through? Or do they fake out and continue the old narrative? You are learning map awareness. So pick one thing and only trade one thing. Weapon control. You are learning weapon control. You are learning what kind of executions work on your map and how precise they are, and what kind of weapons don't work on your map and how not precise they are. You are learning patience. Waiting equals power. If you have patience, you are going to be successful in this. So you essentially control the power. It is teaching you risk control. Risk control is simply damage management. It is how much health points you are willing to lose in this game. It is teaching you in the skill tree, it is teaching you how to control risk. Whether you are back testing or forward testing, you are learning this stuff in this skill tree. Map awareness, weapon control, patience, risk control, and emotional control. Whether you are back testing or forward testing, if you are following the things you are supposed to be doing, you are learning to control your emotions and disconnect from whatever happens to you. Whether you win or whether you lose, you don't care. You are fine with either outcome. Okay? Once again, whether you are forward testing or whether you are back testing, you are leveling up your skill tree by collecting save file data. And in that skill tree, you are learning map awareness, weapon control, patience, risk control, and emotional control. Those are the 5 things you need to level up in your skill tree as a character in this video game in order to succeed, okay? Those are your 5 attributes you want to be leveling up. So write those down. Those are important. They're right here. These are the right skill tree, okay? Right upgradable skill tree. And these 5 things are the things you want to be leveling up over time. And you are leveling up those things by gaining experience. How can you gain experience? By creating save data file, aka by journaling properly, okay? Do we got that? You see how that all connects together? You're sticking with me. You're sticking with me. Okay. After every trading session and after every trade you take, I want you to screenshot the chart, no matter what device you're on. I want you to screenshot the chart. I want you then to, first of all, you should have already had your journal done. So after your journaling is done, I want you to screenshot the chart, okay? Mark up any important notes on that screenshot, okay? And then the most important part, I want you to write one lesson you learned on that screenshot. So use like a pen or whatever it is that you can use. Draw on the screenshot, okay? I want you to write one lesson you learned on that screenshot, whether it was a win or a loss. What is it that you learned that day? I learned not to go against the rejection zones. I learned not to rush the process. I learned that when my rejection zone gets broken through, I need to stop trying to force it to go the other way, right? Write down the lesson you learned. So to close this video off, what I want to say is the markets reward players in this game who learn. You have to understand that. I just taught you how to learn. I just taught you how to level up your XP bar, okay? And we did it without overcomplicating it and without making it super nerdy, okay? So come on. And I just told you how you can get extra help. Links in the description. The markets reward players who learn, not players who rush. Players who rush in this game get freaking destroyed, all right? If you rush, you are going to get destroyed. Now, there are going to be times when you rush and get destroyed, okay? You're not going to have a perfect day every day. The market rewards players who learn not to rush. It punishes players who rush. Save your game data, review your battles, and that is how you keep yourself from restarting from level 1, okay? I just taught you exactly how you can do all that. The markets reward players who learn. It does not reward players who rush. So you need to save your game file data, review your battles. That is how you keep yourself from restarting from level 1, okay? You want your XP bar to go up. You don't want your XP bar to go down. And you definitely don't want your health points to go down. Otherwise, you can't play the game anymore. So with that being said, I know this was a really long video, but this, honestly, in my opinion, is probably the most important video. With that being said, I will see you guys in the next part.